before noon? Good morning. This is the Windsor Public Library. It is a very snowy day outside, and we thought it was a perfect time for talking about books. We're talking about the Windsor Library Reading Challenge, which is a list of 12 categories of books that we thought we would challenge our readers to participate in. You can find your own copy at windsorlibrary.com. You could download a PDF there. We started this because a few of us on staff did the BookRiot.com challenge last calendar year. It was a list of 25 books. We got really hyped up about it, and at the end of last year, we thought that we would do one ourselves. There's also a Pop Sugar one that we talked about doing, and a couple of other ones on the interwebs. Can you think of any of the other ones? There's like a Jane Austen one.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
there is. Yeah.
Really specific ones.
Very much.
So we are in the Music Makerspace at the Public Library. It is a space that was funded by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving for music education. It is currently open for drop-in hours for experimentation and instrument play on Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. and the second and third Saturday of the month at 10:30 a.m. There's also Shake, Shimmy, and Dance, a program for children every other Wednesday at 2:30, and the next one is February 22nd. So I think I'm going to start by introducing us.
Okay.
My name is Andrea. I am the Reference and Technical Services Librarian at the library. I do purchasing for the adult collection, but I rely on most recommendations from other staff. So while I know about books, they can speak to them a bit more.
My name is Denise Ricotta. I'm the IT librarian, so I spend about half my time with books and half my time with computers.
What about books about computers?
No.
That's a genre you haven't read yet.
Oh, that actually could go in I will read that DOS book. That'll be much
Sure. That could be the one. Go ahead.
My name is Danielle Tapper. I'm a reference librarian here. I purchase the audiobooks, so that's fun. It's a different way of buying books. I read a lot of historical fiction and popular fiction.
And I'm Shannon Schilling. I'm the Teen Services Librarian, so I manage all of the teen collections and do teen programming.
So I thought we would start by reading each of the categories that we came up with, and then talk a little bit about why we came up with them. I think that's worth exploring if we want to use our giant version of the reading challenge. The first one is read a book that you've been meaning to read. We've all got well, if you're like me, we've got piles of books that we've purchased and have been recommended and are maybe overdue from the library. So that was really something that we just wanted to say. I think everybody has a book that or a title that they've been meaning to read, and so let's knock that out in the year of 2017. So go ahead.
Next category is read a book you loved as a child but haven't read since, which is a little tricky for me because I have a little one at home and I've been reading him a lot of my favorites.
Like what?
We've read a lot of Winnie the Pooh. We read The Cricket in Times Square. We've read all those already. Yeah. So I think my book for that category might be Little Women because he's not interested in Little Women, and that was a book I loved when I was a kid. So.
Okay, all right. How old were you when you read Little Women?
Young. Yeah.
Oh, girl.
In fact, I have the little illustrated paperback version that my aunt
Do you have the
gave
whole
me.
set?
No, I don't. That's the only one I still have. My mother gave away the rest.
Because I didn't realize until I was much older that
There was a big
more.
set of them, yeah.
There's Little Men,
Yeah.
Cousins, and
Little cousins or just cousins?
No, cousins.
there's
Little
four.
women, little men.
I am
Julie's
showing
three.
my
Cousins
bad
and
librarian
Definitely
Joe's
not.
Boys. Joe's Boys is the last one in there.
Yes.
Yes,
There's
there's
four.
four.
Like her sons?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so.
Well,
Ah,
they opened
yeah.
a school.
Joe. All right, go ahead.
The next one is read a book by a person of color.
We actually took this from Book
Black
Riot.
History Month.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Black
it is
History
Black
Month.
History Month.
Black History Month,
But,
yeah.
and it could be any person of color.
Yeah, there's some good recommendations there.
Read a book set in or about nature. So this is probably kind of a challenging one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to want to read like Walden or...
Yeah. I think that came from Laura, another staff person.
But it's
And-
definitely a cool one.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Talis, another staff
Yeah.
person, would
Yeah,
really
yeah,
appreciate.
like,
I think
yes.
he's more in nature than reading about nature on a regular basis. Though. The next one is read a book with food on the cover. This was a really fun one that we wanted to pick out solely based on the cover, which is again another dirty librarian thing to say. But we thought it was fun. I think it lends itself to food books, which I'm partial to, but also to creative cover art. Right? So go ahead.
The next is read a book in a genre you've never read before, which for librarians is probably kind of tricky.
I actually brought one for that because, not to like toot our own horns, but like read a genre we never read before. Like, we've read all of
course,
them, right? We know.
We know. Try it all.
But I think some of the more like niche ones, we could find things to read.
Sure.
Who's next?
Oh, it would be me. I was thinking about my genre. I've never read westerns. I've never read a western.
Oh, you know what?
I don't think I
That's true. Yeah.
I've seen movies.
There's
That
one.
doesn't
There's
count.
one called One True Grit that we read for the Nutmeg Book Award. That is like a younger version of True Grit.
Oh.
One Flew Home. Oh, oof. I'll have to look that up. Go ahead.
The
Link
next,
will be in the bio at the end.
Read a book set in or by an author from New England. I think this came sort of from the Book Riot one. Was read a book within 100 miles of where you live.
Yes. And then the other
And
one
then
was read a book over 5,000
500.
miles, something like insane.
And so obviously there are some amount of authors and people from Connecticut and books set in Connecticut, but we decided to open up to all of New England because there's lovely, great things.
Read a graphic novel, and we said double points if it has a female main character, although the points mean nothing.
It's just life
The
points.
points don't mean anything. Yeah.
it's just like whose line is it?
Yeah.
the points are worth nothing.
But there's a lot of good graphic novels coming out, and a lot of good female main character ones. So
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to put that in there.
Revamped Marvel, if you like Marvel. Thor is now a woman, and
Iron Man.
There's
like
Spider
two or
Iron
three.
Man.
There's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
2 or 3 characters that are getting revamped.
To say
as
nothing
well.
of Miss Marvel.
Well,
Marvel,
Marvel,
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be
It could
a
still be.
Doesn't have
superhero
to be.
graphic
Doesn't
novel.
have to
It could
Right.
be something else.
Yeah.
Persepolis.
Persepolis
Oh,
is a
Relish?
great, yes. Relish is fun.
Which you read last year, right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did.
The next one is read a book that's been banned or frequently challenged. I think I want to give this one to you because it's like you did your thesis on it.
I did my thesis in library school on frequently challenged books in school libraries specifically, but it happens a lot in the United States in public schools.
Yep.
Or public libraries where a book is challenged for whatever reason.
Challenged or banned meaning somebody objects to its place in the public library or public school.
Yeah.
Did I
And
say that
so-
right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of
And
books
believe
that you wouldn't think would be on the challenge list. The one I always like to bring up is the Bible. There
Yeah.
are-
Very much so.
Harry Potter has been challenged.
Yeah.
Mark Twain.
Mark
is
Twain.
a very
Yes.
challenged
Yeah.
author.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a week to celebrate it in September.
Yep.
Fan books
So you
week.
could save that one maybe
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
getting the mood.
Timely, yeah.
Yep. The next one. Do you want to do the next one, Shannon?
Read a book that's been nominated for a Youth Media Award. If you don't know what that means, it's like the Prince or the Newbery or the Caldecott.
It's the Oscars of young
Yeah.
adult and children's books.
For young adult and
Yes.
children's books, they get awards that are given out every January. So this year's winners were just announced. So,
Yeah.
and then there's, tons and tons from past years. So there's a lot to choose from.
So the next one is read a book about an immigrant or refugee. We thought this was relevant, and it is a little bit more challenging to find while we were making the book list by subject heading, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But some of the most, I find personally rewarding books to read, like Outcast United, as one of my all-time favorites. And then you had just read In Defense of the Country We Love. Is that
I
what it's
haven't read it
called?
yet, but I want to. I know.
So that's on
So
your
in the country we
list.
love by the girl from Orange is the New Black.
Yep.
And, not Piper, the other one.
That's
Sure.
a good
Can't
category.
remember.
Don't watch it.
That's a good category though if you love historical fiction. It's a
Yeah,
really good
yeah.
category
Yeah.
Yeah.
for that. There's a lot of good stuff there.
And memoirs.
Yeah, memoirs too.
What if they needed to do that?
Which one?
The one with the 4 Jewish ladies that escaped Europe
yes.
to go to Israel.
Oh,
And I can't think of,
What is the
and I
title?
read it, but
That's
I can't
not
think of the title.
What color is the cover?
Yeah.
Do you want to take the last one?
The last one is read a book with an LGBTQIA author or character.
Can you explain
And
those
actually,
letters, please?
sure.
Yeah, for those who aren't familiar, LGBTQIA is an acronym for should we take one? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, or
asexual. And actually, I brought a book. That's the one I'm reading right now.
For the first time?
Yes. Which was an
I'm
Oprah book.
shocked
I
for the first
know.
time you're reading that.
Right? It was an Oprah book, and Oprah loved it, and I put it on my list, and I bought a copy and put it
Oprah.
on my shelf. And,
No, that is one of those books that you put on your shelf.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and have pulled
And
it
you're
out
just
a
like,
couple
oh, I
times.
just need to go back to that someday.
Yeah. So,
Which
Um,
lends itself to, you could double dip if you
Like-
like. It's a book that Denise has been meaning to read, but it also has a book with an LGBTQIA character.
and immigrants.
Whoa.
I know.
Whoa.
Right? It
Whoa.
did. It collapsed
Check
like
them
a
all
boom,
out.
boom.
Check them all out.
It did. Yes. So.
So anyway, we thought we'd talk about some of the books that we've read that fit into the categories, or we've read specifically for the challenge, and then just go from there.
Sure.
Does anybody want to start?
You want me to start
I'll
talking about
start.
this?
I'll definitely start.
All right,
So,
you start then.
32 Yolks by Eric Repair is something that I picked up for the Book Riot Challenge last year. It was Rita's chef memoir, but I think it's phenomenal to talk about. It has a very loosely illustrated egg on the cover, so it's read a book with food on the cover. It's his memoir about his early years as a chef in training in Europe. Has a very relaxed tone. It's a fascinating look inside some of the most high intensity, fast-paced kitchens of really high-end restaurants. I'm a huge fan of his, have been since like the first couple of seasons of Top Chef, but admittedly haven't watched since. I think he's really charismatic, really engaging. The image that really sticks with me is him and his really cool like black leather jacket coming into like being this like young, hot chef. And so it's a quick read. I suggested it to another staff member, and she and I both agreed that well, I won't spoil it, but the ending is very much like the end of a chapter, and that you want to say like, okay, but what did you do next, Eric? Like, which kitchen did you go to next? Who did you meet? What chef did you learn from? So that's my food with book on the cover book. No, book with food on the cover book for a suggestion. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. So, in December, I had the chance to go to New York City to go to a Random House book event. And Trevor Noah actually talked about his memoir, Born a Crime. So, he is if you don't know him, he's on some late night show now.
He's the new host of The Daily Show.
Yeah,
He is.
things that are up past my bedtime.
So.
But he was really engaging to listen to, and he read a couple of the chapters from this. But he grew up in South Africa during apartheid, as well as the days following, or the years following. So I knew enough about apartheid that Nelson Mandela ended it, but I didn't know the nitty-gritty details. I thought it was really interesting that there are a striation of races, and so they have white, black, colored is its own thing, its own category, and you couldn't live with people of different races. So his mom was black, his dad was white, and his mom basically butted the system by allowing him to live with her because he was colored, which was in
Colored being the definition of like mixed race?
mixed race. Yes, and Chinese was different. There were like 4 or 5.
How old is he? 30s?
Yes,
At least.
at least. but you know, it's a very heartwarming story. It was really, really fun to listen to because he narrates it and he has a beautiful South African accent.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely spoke more to me after having seen him talk about it and sort of his experiences, and then listening to him read it was great. So this is for my read a book by a person of color.
Who else did you see at the open house?
Oh, I saw lots of people. I saw John Meacham, which I've yet to read a biography by him, but he's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he was actually probably the surprising author that I didn't know about that I enjoyed listening to. Diana Gabaldon was there, who's like my love. I love her books. I love historical fiction. I have a tattoo based on the Alphabet books. No.
Show it to the people.
If you want to come in, I'll
The
show
person
you.
probably.
It's on my legs. And I saw Jodi Picoult talk as well, who's probably my second favorite author, my sister's keeper. She's actually an author that you could use for the read a book set in or by an author from New England, because most of her books are set in New England. She's from New Hampshire, or she lives in
She
New
lives
Hampshire.
there now?
She lives in
She lives in New Hampshire
Jody.
now. Yes, but she
You want to do an
picked-
author visit?
probably.
Jody. Get at us.
And who else? Your favorite little short story man. He wasn't little, but he was tall. I gave you the graphic novel. Who was he?
Oh,
George
George
Saunders.
Saunders?
Yes.
George Saunders, yes. Yeah.
He was.
Which his new book is about Lincoln after his son died?
Yes.
Yes.
Or just
yeah.
And
as
it's
his
his
son
first
died.
novel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's his first full length, yeah. not
Unfortunately, he
short
was just after lunch, and I was sort of tired. So
It's
it wasn't as entertaining.
the best times.
No, he did not. And then they had a panel of 4 debut authors. whose
Love it.
names I can't remember.
Love it.
It was fun. But this was highly, highly recommended.
Who's next?
You wanna go? I'll talk about the
Yeah, you
so
started that one.
the one I'm reading for the LGBTQIA and or immigrant, really you could do it that way too, is Middlesex, which was an Oprah book club book when she was doing her book clubs. And it's about it's about 3 generations of a Greek family, but the narrator and the main character is born a girl, sort of. He's really born a boy, but he's born with a chromosomal disorder, so that everything is hidden until he hits puberty. So yeah, and they're a Greek family, which makes the immigrant part of it a lot of fun to read that part of it. And that he starts with his grandparents, and then talks about then he tells you the story of how his parents met, because you need all of this history to know why he ended up the way he ended up. I'm not
Like
finished reading it.
biologically?
Biologically, yeah. I'm
Oh,
not finished with it yet, so
wow.
I won't spoil anything.
How's it reading? Is it like dense? It's a pretty thick book.
No, I don't. It's not. Well, yeah.
You
like,
go for those.
I like big books. Yeah.
And you cannot lie.
I cannot lie. No, I do like big books. Yeah, so I don't find it dense. I find every generation's story
Yeah,
a
just
little more
pouring
compelling.
over it.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
'cause
yeah.
I love family drama stories.
Yeah,
And
you
so-
do.
Oh, I do. I love
500 pages is a
So-
lot of pages, and this is, you know,
Yeah, it's a.
decent text.
Yeah.
Size.
You're up.
All right. Also for the LGBT one, I read History's All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. It's a very sad book, but also had a lot of happy moments where I laughed out loud. So if you're into that mixture,
The story of life, really.
yeah. And I actually saw this author at Books of Wonder in New York. I went down for his book launch for this, and he was fantastic. He's very charismatic, very, very funny. He was talking about how he loves making people cry. That's his goal in every book he writes. And this is his second, and I would say both of them succeeded in that goal. So it's very good.
Do you want to tell a little bit about the backstory? Do we have the permission to tell who it's about? Is that public knowledge?
I think so. So the story is that there's a teenage boy whose ex-boyfriend dies, and so the story is about him grieving that and then moving on. because he was very much still in love with his ex-boyfriend who passed away.
Mhm.
And the author said that the inspiration for it came from a breakup between him and another young adult author
Oh.
who didn't die. That author is still alive, but he
Very
like
healthy.
essentially killed off his character in the books. But like they're still friends, I think, and they're both, it's fine. But yeah, it was an interesting fun fact. It was Adam Silvera, and he was dating John Corey Whaley, who wrote this book. So
Segue right in. Oh my god.
that was his ex-boyfriend. Yeah. Should I talk about this one?
Yeah.
Go for it.
All
Go
right.
for it.
So
Just
this
move
one
on.
by John Corey Whaley, Where Things Come Back. I read for the Youth Media Award because you can see here it won 2 a few years ago. Prince Award, which is like the best award, or like the best book of the year altogether for young adults, and then the Morris Award, which is the best debut book for that year.
Did you know that I have to tell you, I was obsessed with Prince Award at one time, and it's a debut book, and the only, I think, author and book at the time that was able to do that was Looking for Alaska, because it was a debut and a prince, I believe. I don't know if it's happened since then, but yeah, so go ahead.
I know there are ones
'Cause
that
I'm
have been
obsessed with that.
nominated for both. But
Yes,
that, like,
yes,
it's
yes,
rare
yes,
for
yes.
it to like win both
Yes.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting story. It's about a small town in Arkansas, so very different from Connecticut, I would say. I don't know. It's just very like it's literary fiction. I would say that for sure.
Yeah.
If you're like interested in that style, and it's about a boy who goes missing, and then how everyone reacts to it. And there's also a woodpecker involved. So it's
That's
kinda
the
weird,
part that I
though.
thought that was magical realism. That had this element, but it's definitely this element of like, wait, is this real? Like, there's really like this bird who
Yeah.
is extinct, or they think it's extinct.
Yeah, but they call it like the Lazarus.
Yes.
Because I think it's like
Ah.
a return to the small town. There's also a lot of like religious themes in this too,
Sure.
so it covers a lot.
Wow.
We didn't do any religion or political on this one. I think we wanted to be as like approachable as possible.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, this book, Number the Stars by Lois Lowry, is actually fulfilling my read a book you loved as a child but haven't read since. I've read a lot of my childhood favorites, Winnie the Pooh. I read it like every couple of years. And I have nephews now, so a lot of the picture books that I like, I read to them. But I haven't read this since 4th grade when it got assigned to me.
Oh, that's a perfect thing for this.
And I grew up in West Hartford, which is a very high Jewish population, so I know that I've read more Holocaust fiction books than most people, but they work it into the curriculum really well, and reading this was very nostalgic. I forgot that it took place in Denmark, not anywhere else, and the people, the Jews that they were trying to rescue were trying to get to Sweden because Sweden was neutral during World War II, which I forgot. So there was a lot of history I forgot, but it was really, really well done. And it won the Newbery,
So it could also be a youth media.
Oh,
which is for the most
yes.
distinguished contribution to American literature for children.
I'm always afraid to reread books. Because you're like one
Oh,
person
yes.
when you read it, and then like, I'm just always afraid I won't love it as much. Like we were just talking.
Sometimes they get better though.
Oh,
You
but I
didn't
don't know.
reread all the Harry Potters before the new ones came out?
No, I did reread them at one point though. It's like when you taste a food for the first time that you're like, oh my god, like thinking about, like the Corona. But then you have it a second time, it's like never as good. We were just talking, my friend and I were just talking about this. It's never as good as the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm terrified of reading some of my favorite books again. But that might just be me. It might just be me. I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way? Do you have
I
like
have
reread
one-
singles?
There are definitely books I reread, but I have one book that, although I love to recommend it to people, I'm afraid to go back to because I'm a very different person.
What is
than
it?
I was. It's 100 Years of Solitude,
Oh.
which I read in college, and I was it was a
Right.
great college read.
You're like learning
But
about
I'm-
the world, and now it's like you know about this much about the world. It's like,
Right,
oh,
yeah.
is it
Do I
gonna
go
be
back
the
and read
same?
it? Can't go back and read it.
The only books that I buy are ones that I know I'm going to reread. So I have,
How do you know you're gonna reread them? Yeah.
because I want to. After I read it, I know that I want to read it again. I'm like the anti-librarian, I don't buy a lot of books. So I have like a bookshelf. including Harry Potter. I mean, Harry Potter is his own shelf, and then
Mhm.
I own all the Outlander books, and if I had the time, I would reread all the Outlander books before the new one came out, but I
That's
don't have the
commitment.
time.
That is a huge commitment.
You got lots of that going on in your life.
They're like 1,000 pages each. No.
Okay, so speaking of read a book in a genre that you've never read before, A Poet of the Invisible World by Michael Golding is, I would say, a spiritual journey. Very much so, literally and figuratively spiritual journey, because the main character is a Sufi, which is a person who's dedicated to the life of prayer. It takes place in, I believe, the 13th century. I'm terrible. Really relaxed. It's sort of the journey of his life. I always think of books that are like more character driven as the thing that I related to as Forrest Gump. Like, it's not really about anything except for him. You learn who this person is, and just the whole story of who Forrest Gump is. So it's a little bit like that in that you buckle up for the ride with this character, and that's pretty much it. Very relevant to like the search for the meaning of life and that kind of thing. But for me, he's really likable, really approachable as a character, as is the writing. It was suggested to me by a patron. We love patron suggestions, so anything that you think we should read, please send us our way. We had met for our evening book club. We had read The Book of Unknown Americans by Christina Enriquez.
I think so.
Henriquez? I think it's
very close.
Henriquez. We're trading titles. We both loved The Book of Unknown Americans, and she had suggested A Poet of the Invisible World, and so we love reading stuff that people suggest to us. One of our coworkers, who couldn't be here this morning, is listening to Wonder by R.J. Palacio. The story of a sort of a school-based setting, and a boy who's not really accepted, and how he deals with that, and how his family deals with that.
Made into a major motion picture.
Make sure, yeah.
Did it come out yet?
Not yet.
No.
Get out.
This fall?
Sometime this year.
Yeah.
And the little boy's obsessed with Star Wars, so as a new Star Wars fan, I have to say it's very, very endearing.
Yeah.
Very endearing.
It's always nice when characters in books are like fans of things that you're also fan of. That's how this
Yes.
one was. Like, they were like super Harry Potter fans.
Yes. And you're like, I get it, that person is me.
We are kindred spirits.
I am that person.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes.
a great thing.
So while I didn't read it for specifically this challenge, I think it works moving forward for somebody who's never read a spiritual journey before. Yeah. But I think I'm going to do Westerns.
For your genre?
I can't say I've ever been clamoring to read a Western.
Well, the Reader's Advisory Roundtable that I go to for work, we pick a genre every other month, and in May, it's not March, it's May, we're doing Pioneer Women.
Ooh.
Totally double dipping. I'm going to read something.
Can you count those cookbooks by the Pioneer Woman?
No.
Is that what she's called?
No.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
awesome.
herself.
Well, and it started as none of us read Westerns,
No.
and then a librarian from Manchester was like, I love women's fiction set in the West, strong women. She is going to give us a book list. Because
Well,
I'm
I
going to
think
need
we-
help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Should we do you guys want to do one more each?
Sure. I have
Tell us about Stuart.
This is the book that I read by him that I
Oh.
love.
Where do you live?
Where does he live now?
Well, you know what? This book that I'm going to be reading takes place in New Britain.
Yes, it does.
I think he lives
We
in
had him come
Connecticut.
talk when I worked in
Yes. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, it's awesome. And
Edinburgh.
and of course
Berlin
it's,
Turnpike Fair.
I love because you're driving down. You
Yeah,
know
you're
what
there.
these places where these
I
places
am that
are, what
person,
they
and
look
that
like.
person is
Yes,
me.
exactly.
Driving on the Berlin Turnpike.
Yes. So, but I always recommend to people Snow Angels by Stuart O'Nan,
Okay.
which also was made into a movie some years ago.
Pitch it to me.
But this is the
Why
book
do I
that
want to read that?
this is the book that sort of launched his career. It has there were two parts of the book where I was like, oh my god, did not see that coming.
Sure.
And those are the things that I love.
Sure.
When you can't see what's coming. So it's a book about a young man. It's a coming of age story. A young man whose parents are going through a divorce, who has his first girlfriend,
Coming of age is my weakness.
has a crush on
I will pick up
his former
anything that's coming
babysitter.
of age.
Yeah,
I
so,
love
So
it.
all of YA.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like realistic YA was my jam for a long time.
Yeah, coming of age stories are awesome. But yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe I'm gonna pick that up. I don't know. Go ahead.
I can go.
Yeah.
I have one.
Well,
I haven't read this one yet, but it's what I'm reading next. This is my graphic novel. It's
Marissa
called
Meyer.
Marissa
Yes, based on
Meyer.
the Lunar
Yes.
Chronicles.
So this
Is it a new story?
It's a new story. As part of the Lunar Chronicles, which if you don't know is Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter. They're
Very
fairy
popular.
tale retellings in like a science fiction future world.
And,
Cinder was
and
just-
Fairest was what? A
And there's
novella?
a prequel and there is a short story collection.
It's a lot
And
going
now
on.
there's a graphic
There's a
novel.
lot going on
Yeah.
in that world.
So it's by Marissa Meyer. And
And
it's
Cinder
a
was just on Nutmeg, right? Did it win?
It was like a couple years ago.
No.
I don't
Oh,
know if it
wow.
won. I can't remember.
Okay.
But this is a story about one of the characters who each of the other books, like Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter are all character names. But then there's another character who didn't have her own book, and so she's getting her own graphic novel. She was kind of more of a secondary character, but people loved her. So I'm very excited because I read all the books. And this will be the first time seeing drawings of the characters, whereas before I imagined them. So very excited, female main character, so I get double points.
Double points.
Yeah.
Double points. I wonder if was it deliberate that the format was for the character? Like, is the character a real graphic novel type of gal?
I don't know.
You know, fearless. A lot of like
I don't know
exaggerated
what the
physical.
decision. We should just wanted like Marissa
Try
Meyer
something
wanted to do
different.
something
Just try
different.
something.
Professionally, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh.
You now have Miss Peregrine's Home in graphic
Those are in
novels,
graphic
too?
Yeah.
novel format. There's a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We were just talking.
I would
Game
love
of
to read
Thrones
those.
has. They're
Thrones.
older, but they have some graphic novels.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Outlander. They did a Outlander graphic novel.
Maybe our next episode will be just graphic novel. We'll get Sam as a special guest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout out to
Oh,
Sam.
yes.
So I think that's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
Any parting remarks?